It's a Maamar from Tafshin Chavtes by Yigash Elav Yehuda, and Yehuda approached Yosef. And it says in the Maamar, and it's brought about this in the Maamar that was said 100 years prior to this. In other words, the Maamar the Rebbe Marash from Tafresh Chavtes, the Afshurat Kitzur Medivra Maskal Yigash Elav Yehuda. Though the Maamar that the Rebbe was quoting from, the Rebbe Marash, is not the full Maamar, it's only a summary. In the summary, a summary includes the entire length of it, especially since the summary itself is not just a few lines, but it's long. So therefore, for sure, it includes the entire Maamar, and therefore we can base the Maamar off of that. The Maamar brings down, the Maamar that Marash brings down, that's explained in the Zohar, that Yehuda approaching Yosef is the idea about bringing close the Ula, Gal Yisrael, to Shemoneh Esrei, that we're not supposed to make any interruptions, Kidlakamon, as we will elaborate upon that later. Before we elaborate upon that, the Rebbe is going to say the necessity of applying this event as a as a lesson, etc. Ubahagdim, second paragraph, the pasuk zebola achre kol arichas hasipur oidus hashtalshus hamurois sheviu liyiridus Yaakov Mitzrayim. This pasuk that Yehuda approached Yosef comes after the lengthy story about how all the events took place that brought about that Yaakov Avinu came down to Mitzrayim. Maamar Chazal say, Roy hoy Yaakov Avinu later Mitzrayim shal shalois shal barzel. Yaakov Avinu was worthy, was supposed to be that he should have come down to Mitzrayim in iron chains. In other words, because Hashem told Avram Avinu that your children will be foreigner in a land that will enslave them, so therefore Yaakov and his children had to come down to Mitzrayim, even if it meant that he would come down with iron chains. But because of Hashem's kindness, that through the Hashem's kindness, how did Yaakov Avinu descend? Instead of through iron chains, he was brought down in a very honored way, that his son, who was the viceroy of Mitzrayim, invited him to come down, settled him in, introduced him to Pari, made sure he got a beautiful place to live in Goshen, etc., etc. In a similar vein, also concerning Yosef, that his sale and his descent to Mitzrayim was in such a way that Hashem sent me before you as a giving for life. In other words, to sustain them, to give them food. Though the psukim do not leave their simple sense. And so even Yosef's descent into Mitzrayim was really for a positive purpose, and the way Yaakov came down was not in a negative way, etc., etc. So, heaven forbid to say that the Torah is just telling stories. It's a storybook. It's a true stories, but it's a storybook. In the Zohar, they use terrible expressions on someone that says that the Torah is just telling stories. Or rather, the Torah is everlasting. The Torah is from the word lesson, directive. More like the words of my father-in-law, the Friedrich Rebbe. The word Eiraisa can be divided into two. Eir Yesa. Eir light, Yesa is brought or comes. That the Torah draws down light in the way the person acts. That's what it means. That's a directive. Until it becomes a lesson to every single person. As it's known, Shemaisa of a similar bonding, that the actions of the forefathers are a sign, are a signpost, as an indicator for the children. Now, what does it mean, Maisa of a similar bonding? There is the simple sense, like we're soon going to have the way the Ramban explains, and then there's the deeper sense that the Rebbe always applies it to, Chassidus applies it to. The explanation, this is not just like the Ramban writes in his commentary on the Torah. This is a general sign for the Yidden in general, every generation. This is also a sign for every individual. In what type of manner he should do his service. Also, when he's outside of Eretz Yisrael and he's in the time of Golus. In other words, the Ramban just says the things that we find Avraham Avinu go through. For example, Avraham Avinu going down to Mitzrayim. That is a signpost of what's going to happen with the Yidden, that the Yidden are going to go into exile in Mitzrayim. So that is the basic, simple pshat of Maisa of a similar bond. It's an indicator what happened to the Avos in the microcosm, to what's going to happen to Klal Yisrael in the macro, in their future history. But the inner meaning of it, a deeper meaning is it's a sign, it's an indicator, it's a lesson for every single Yid. Not just Klal Yisrael as a whole, not just the way we are in our most perfect state when we're in Eretz Yisrael, but also every individual Yid, the way they're in Chutz La'aretz in the time of Golus. These days, the ideas and the concepts that we are taught by the events that happened in the Torah are only spiritual. Mashiach will come and he will finish off the exile and he will begin the redemption. Psak Rambam, like the ruling of the Rambam, Mashiach yikabetz nitchei Yisrael, top of the next page, that Mashiach will collect and gather in all the scattered Yidden. That's the idea of ending the exile. The exiles that the Yidden are scattered all over. So he's going to end that by gathering them in. So then, all the ideas in the story and all the concepts in the story will come down also in the physical. According to all the above, and you understand, what's the idea of Yehuda approaching Yosef? In the service and the soul of a person, meaning what is the spiritual meaning of the story that we all need to derive. And since everybody needs to derive from this a spiritual lesson, maybe by Maamar, for this, the Maamar brings, let's explain in the Zohar, that the spiritual avoid of a person, that every person can do, and every person ought to do, in all times, even in Golus and even in Chutz La'aretz, is the bringing close of Geula to davening Shemoneh Esrei. In other words, the Rebbe is like elaborating on something that was a given in previous generations. In previous Maamarim, he just goes directly into the spiritual idea of what the events that take place in the Torah are about. For example, in our parsha, Yehuda approached Yosef. The Rebbe Marash goes straight into it. You know what? It means Smichas Gula Tefillah, and as it'll be elaborated upon. The Rebbe, speaking to our generation, and as generations get further away, we may not appreciate why all of a sudden do we feel the need to interpret by Yigash Yehuda al Yosef on the idea of Geula Tefillah. So therefore, the Rebbe has to give this whole introduction, like he said, Bahagdim, and say, you know why I'm saying it this way? Because every part in Torah is relevant to every single Yid and every time. And therefore, when we read this part of Torah, and we learn this story in Chumash, we need to realize that it means something in my life as well. And therefore, the Maamar of Maraj, or Maamar of Alter Rebbe, or Maamar of Tzemach Tzedek, these are all practical in my avodas Hashem, because Torah is everlasting. So in a way, things that were given and taken for granted, maybe in previous generations and previous Maamarim, and didn't need this whole introduction, the Rebbe will say again and again, like he did in this Maamar, and he said in the Maamar we learned before this, to emphasize this is all addressing to us in our day-to-day life. Base. The idea behind this is Yosef is the idea of redemption. First idea to explain why Yosef is the idea of redemption, because he redeemed the people from hunger, from famine. Like it says in the pasuk, that Yosef told his brothers, that Hashem sent me before you to be able to bring life. In other words, to save your lives from the famine. So that is one basic reason why Yosef is associated with the idea of Geula. A deeper reason, Befrat Kvisha in Kabbalah, especially the way the matter is according to Kabbalah. Let's explain in the Maamar that Maraj, Yosef u'bechinas tzaddik elyon shenikra goyel. Yosef is the higher tzaddik that's called the Redeemer. We know that Yosef is called Yosef HaTzaddik, and there is a level called Tzaddik Elyon that's associated with the sphere of Yesod. Yosef is associated with the sphere of Yesod. Binyamin is known as Tzaddik Tachten. I'm not going to go into what that is about. And the level of Tzaddik Elyon, according to Kabbalah, is also associated with the level of Geula. He's Tzaddik Elyon, the level of Yesod is called Goyel. Like it says in Rus, where it talks over there about the Redeemer to come and redeem his brother's property, etc., etc. And it says, Im yigolcha toiv yigol. If he will redeem you, and if he will acquire the property and the possessions of the brother, etc., so then good, he will redeem. So toiv is associated with the level of Geula. What does that have to do with what we're talking here about Yosef? The toiv b'gematria yud zayin. Toiv, the word toiv, good, is the numerical equivalent of 17. The koyal Yosef, it's referring to Yosef, because of Yosef, Yosef was 17 years old. So Yosef is the level of Geula, both in a practical, down-to-earth way, and also according to Kabbalah, because he's the level of Tzaddik Elyon, it's also the level of Geula, it has to do with Gematria Toiv, 17 years old. That's Yosef. Yehuda b'chinas tefillah b'Shemoneh Esrei. Yehuda is the level of davening Shemoneh Esrei. Ki Yehuda malosh napam oides Hashem, like we had also in the previous Maamar. Yehuda is from the expression, now Leah said, I will thank Hashem. V'hoidah b'chinas bittul. The word hoidah, which means not just thanks, but it means admitting and accepting, like someone that is moider to someone else. Moider Amel Chamim, the Maamarim always bring down. Moider means a level of bittul. I am sublimating my opinion, my view to someone else. So Yehuda's name is associated with the concept of bittul. This level of bittul is expressed in the fact that in Shemoneh Esrei, no part of davening do we have this. In Shemoneh Esrei, we have this different times when we need to bow down. Beginning of Shemoneh Esrei, towards the end of Shemoneh Esrei. So that's the association. Yehuda is bittul, Shemoneh Esrei is bittul. Another expression or another idea associated with Yehuda that shows on bittul, which we also mentioned, that we also had in the previous Maamar, the Gambal latest Yehuda Ksiv Atamid Meledus. Also in the birth of Yehuda, it says that she stopped giving birth. Leah stopped giving birth. But Tamid is the idea of standing still. Va'amida, and the idea of standing, Ein Amida la Tefillah. The Chazal also say that Amida is referring to the level of davening. Hu bechinas bittul. It's a level of bittul. So that's going on the davening of Shemoneh Esrei. It's the level of Tefillas HaAmida, the davening of the standing. Amida shows on bittul. Yehuda, it says about him after Vatamid Miledis, that has to do with the idea of bittul. So now he's going to explain. Okay, so we explained Yosef is Geula. Shemoneh Esrei is a level of bittul. How does that fit in with the big picture of the davening process until we reach Shemoneh Esrei and how to express itself in Shemoneh Esrei? The idea behind this is at the beginning of davening we praise Hashem, and also it's in the word Hayda Bittel, and afterwards the verses of praise, then Birchas Krishma, then there's the brachas preceding Krishma, and the Krishma, then there's the Shema Yisrael, and the three parshas, until we work our way up to the ultimate, the level of Shemoneh Esrei. In the Pesukei de Zimra, who has bonus beprotia and yonim the marabah masech havaya magod masech havaya. The idea of Pesukei de Zimra, we are thinking into, we are meditating in the specific matters of how many in quantity are your doings, Hashem. In other words, the vastness and the great variety and the multitude of Hashem's creations, and also the greatness, Magodlu, how great they are, how big they are, how awesome they are. Through meditating on the topic. The topics are discussed in Pesukei de Zimra. A person comes to get excited, that brings into a state of love and awe of Hashem. Birchas Krishma and in the brachas of Krishma, we're not focused so much on the creation and the world down here, but the meditation is primarily in the avoid of the malachim. Those are called srafim. Those are the fiery malachim and the holy beasts. Berash Gadol Chol. We speak about how they are with a great tumult. That is a further level in the ladder of one's avodah and his bonus. And in Krishma we finally reach to the state where it says you shall love Hashem. In other words, that is the time when we attain the level of love. And also where it says in the second parsha of Krishma, you should guard yourselves. Love and guarding, that's the two things. Shu'in and avavir. That's love and awe of Hashem. So we have the build-up till we come to the actual love and awe of Hashem in Krishma. All of this whole process that we were talking about, that is the excitement that the heart reaches with a love and an awe. That's a result of the person's comprehension, meditation, his bonus, the Zimra, Birchas Krishma, etc. The Bina Liba, that's the idea that Bina is a level of the heart, meaning because of the meditation, the understanding, the appreciation of all this, that's how we come to the level of the heart, the excitement of the heart, the passion, the love and awe of Hashem. What comes following that? Afterwards we come to Shemoneh Esrei. It's the idea of standing with great bit like a servant stands before his master. Till he becomes completely nullified. That's the idea of Yehuda, complete bittul. It's not my excitement, not my meditation, not my mind. I am not completely a servant. Since Yosef is the idea of redemption, and Yehuda is the idea of davening, which is Shemoneh Esrei, had Inyan Hagoshes Yehuda li Yosef, the idea of Yehuda's approach to Yosef, Inyan Smiches Geula Tefillah. That's the idea of Geula coming close to davening, because we said davening, Shemoneh Esrei, that's the level of Yehuda. Okay, the Isa of Medrash, Inyan Hagashas Yehuda Yosef, like it's also brought down the Medrash, even though the Zohar is the one that really connects the physical story, the literal story of Yosef and Yehuda, to the idea that in davening should not be any interruptions between Gal, Yisrael, and Shemoneh Esrei. The Medrash also, when describing Hagashas Yehuda Yosef, Inyan Hagashas Yehuda Yosef, when it's describing and talking about Yehuda's approach to Yosef, the Medrash quotes a pasuk, Shal Zen Nemar, Echad be'echad Yigoshu. One to one they will approach. The Ruach Layavi b'neim, it says in the pasuk, and no space will be between them. In other words, they will completely join. So just like the Medrash applies that concerning Yehuda's approach to Yosef, that they are a complete union with no space between them. So in a similar vein, in the Zohar, applicable of V'cheinu Begula V'tfilah, so too when it comes to Gal, Yisrael, and Shemoneh Esrei, she'ein mafsikim legula min gula tefillah. There's not supposed to be any space between them. You're not supposed to have any type of interruption between the two. Any question? The Rebbe is going to ask a very simple, obvious question when we look at the pasuk and we compare it to davening. You look at the pasuk, who approached whom? Yehuda approached Yosef. When you look at the order in davening, it's not that way. First there's Gal Yisrael, which we said is Yosef. Then there's Yehuda, which is Shemoneh Esrei. So it seems to be the opposite. But we need to understand how the Begula V'tfilah in our davening, when we say Gal Yisrael and Shemoneh Esrei, Hasei Deruch Shesayim Gula Tfilah. The order is that we make the Geula close to the davening. In other words, we daven Gal Yisrael, and following that, we immediately say Shemoneh Esrei. V'loy Tfilah leGeula. It's not that we're saying first Shemoneh Esrei and then immediately following it with Gal Yisrael. V'kiven she Yosef in Yoni Geula, v'Yehuda in Yoni Tfilah, top of the next page. Since Yosef is the idea of redemption and Yehuda is the idea of davening, Yosef Lageshes Yehuda. So it should have been the other way around. That it should have been that Yosef should be approaching Yehuda al derech smichas gula tefillah, similar to having Gal Yisrael and then Shemoneh Esrei. Gal Yisrael representing Yosef and Shemoneh Esrei representing Yehuda. Lama nigash Yehuda al Yosef. Why did Yehuda approach Yosef? Shezel al derech smichas tefillah gula. That is similar to bringing close the Shemoneh Esrei to Geul. So now the Rebbe is going to bring in the idea of L'chadaidi, which I believe we had not too long ago in the Maamar as well. Ois Dal. To be able to understand the answer for this. Why the way, if we daven Gul and then Tfilah, why did Yehuda approach Yosef and not the other way around? So we have to first preface the idea that it says, go, my beloved, towards the bride, and we will greet the Shabbos, the face of Shabbos. Kimin Yisrael, Loimer Zabachol El Shabbos, like the custom of Yidden is to say this every Friday night. We say L'chadoid. Hini Yaduam, it's known she'inyan HaShabbos hu inyan HaTfilah shel kol yemei Shavua. The day of Shabbos, in comparison and in regards to the rest of the days of the week, is the same relationship like davening is to the entire day. This means just like the idea of davening is the ascent and elevation from below to above. Like it says, the ladder that's standing on the ground, and its head is reaching to the heavens. It's brought on the Zohar that the ladder that is going on davening. Davening is a ladder to go upwards. So to Shabbos is the ascent of the worlds going from below to above. So this talks about is going from the level of Asar Mamoris Dibur to the level of Machshava. So that's the relationship that Shabbos is corresponding to the idea of davening. Canal, just like davening is the idea of bittul, like we said before. Person standing like a servant before his master, etc. He bows down in Shemoneh Esrei. Shabbos is in a similar vein to davening. The Shabbos Umaloshen Shvisa. Shabbos is the word cessation, stopping. She'asur b'melacha, that's prohibited to do work. She'zehu nabitl, that's the idea of bitl. So, stopping from my work is similar to Shemoneh Esrei, where I also express my bitl. So Shabbos represents the idea of davening. So there should be able to be the Shabbos to come up from below to above, which the beginning of that process is Friday evening. That's when it starts, the Aliyah. So the Aliyah is nimshach hakoyach al zeh milmaylo. There first needs to be empowered and drawn down upon it a power from above, and when that power from above comes, it enables the Aliyah of Shabbos to go upwards. We have a similar idea many, many times in Chassidus, this concept, that even though we know Isirusa de Sato, by first having an inspiration down here below, that brings about Isirusa de Leila, an inspiration above, but for us to be able to reach that state of Isirusa de Sato, of inspiration down here below, we need beforehand the Isirusa de Leila. So he says, "V'zeh sheknes Yisrael emeres laKadosh Baruch." That's why Yidden say to Hashem, "Lecha doidi," go, my beloved, meaning Hashem is called the beloved of the Yidden. Lekras kala, towards the kala, even though the kala is about, you say kiloyin, going upwards, but first there has to be doidi that comes down. The beloved has to come down from above to below. Pnei Shabbos nekablo, let us greet the face of Shabbos. So there should be able to be the level of kala. Kala is the level of kiloyin, of this, the expiration, the manner of expiring towards Hashem. It's the idea of expiring and the elevation from below to above. For this, first, before Shabbos can go upwards, we need the beloved Hashem should come down. It's the drawing down from above to Knesset Yisrael, that's called Kala. Through that, it could be the level of expiration, expiring, and love, and elevation that goes from below to above. Like this matter is explained in Likutei Torah, and then the Maamar of the Mittler Rebbe, and the Torah Barichas at great length. This is also a theme of the Chasana Maamar, that the L'chadoidi Maamar of the Rebbe from Tafshin Yudaled, and the L'chadoidi Maamar that the Frierdiker Rebbe said by the Rebbe's wedding in Tafresh Peites. This whole idea of this interplay, that there needs to be first Amshacha from above to be able to be able to engender the elevation from below. So Shabbos, which represents the idea of davening, which is the idea of the bittul and aliyah mulmata l'mayla, needs to have, before there can be that aliyah mulmata l'mayla, needs to have a level that precedes it, that gives the capability to be able to have that aliyah from below. By the way, another similar situation that we see about it. We know El Zanila Doidi v'Doidi Li. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me. That's Yisrus Sato, Anila Doidi, and then Doidi Li, my beloved is to me, Yisrus Leila. But beforehand, we have Melech Basada. Before any of that begins, we have the king has to come into the field, because before we can even have the Anila Doidi, we need to have the empowerment from above, so we should be able to reach that.